Rogues Gallery, issue number 1 from Image Comics. So I picked this up thinking that it was going to be like the little premise promises it to be, which is the Purge meets Scream. But it's nothing like that at all. In fact, the best way I can describe this series, at least based off of this issue, would be a power fantasy against toxic fandom. So let's get into it, and I'll explain as I go along. So we start off with a scene from Rogue Red. And Rogue Red is a TV series based off of a comic book series. And the writing is pretty terrible, at least the dialogue is. And after the scene is done, we cut to a comic book shop, which has more customers in it than an actual comic book shop does nowadays. And we see a group of fans of Rogue Red, the comics, and they're just bad-mouthing the show. They're just talking about how horrible it is, how the writing is garbage, how it needs to stick more to the comics because the comics are actually good. They're constantly crapping on the actress who plays the main lead and how everything's her fault. Like, she recently won an auction for a Red Rogue comic book that's signed by the creator, and how the fans are like, she doesn't deserve that comic. The comic should belong to us, the fans. Basically, it's trying to portray the fandom, but it's like a Twitter person who doesn't know anything about the comics, and they're just kind of like, oh, this is what I think the fandom for superheroes and comics and stuff are based off of the not really well-researched articles that I see. Yeah, they basically discuss how they're going to get back at the actress. They're going to get back at her by breaking into her house and stealing the comic, the signed comic, because it's a piece of Red Rogue history and Maisie doesn't deserve to have it. Eventually, they discovered that Maisie has bowed out of the show. After 10 years, 10 seasons, she has, contract negotiations fell through, and so she's out of the show. And since the lead character is gone, rather than continuing the show, they're just going to cancel it, which, I mean, if the show was any good, wouldn't happen. Just look at Batwoman. Well, actually, no, don't look at Batwoman, because Batwoman wasn't a good show to begin with. But, yeah, if this show was going 10 years and still had a lot of mileage on it, they wouldn't cancel it just because the main actress leads. They'll either give her more money to try to convince her to stay, or they'll just recast her. But, yeah, she bows out, so the show gets canceled. First off, what kind of superhero show lasts for 10 years? I mean, I think the closest we got was Arrow, which is 8 years. But then again, Arrow was on the CW. And the CW the fact that it got sold for like $0 kind of shows how terrible management is at the CW. Ratings don't mean anything. I mean, if ratings meant something, Batwoman wouldn't have lasted as long as it did. But yeah, 10 years for a comic book show. I mean, Disney can't even get one of their shows to last for more than a season. So having a show go for 10 years, especially one that apparently is considered awful, because, these characters are apparently super fans of Red Rogue, and all they talk about is how terrible it was from the get-go. Which also begs the question, why the hell are you watching a TV series that you hate for 10 years? Nobody hate watches a show for 10 years. Like, come on. In fact, I would even say that most quote-unquote toxic fandom doesn't even put up with, like, if they hate a show or a series, like, based off of something that they love, they just don't give it time and attention. At least that's from my experience, from what I've seen. But maybe it's different. But yeah, if people hate something, they pretty much just say, yeah, it sucks, I'm not going to give it my time or attention, and they move on to the next thing. They don't, like, obsess about it like the characters do here. That's all they talk about. Like, that's why you might be wondering, like, Pirate, why are you only showing, like, 2 images from this entire issue? And it's because that's all that happens in this entire issue. It's just these characters sitting around complaining about a show based off a comic book that they like. That's it. Nothing else happens. It's just them sitting around complaining about how terrible the show is, how Maisie Wade has ruined the show, how they need to get back at her. That It's all it is for the entire issue. Like, holy cow. Come on. Throughout the entire series, we just follow these unlikable characters as they just bitch about the show and complain about the main actress for every single panel for the entire issue. And yeah, so I guess the cancellation of the show, which they hate, pisses them off even more. So again, it feels like this series was written by someone who has no idea what a fandom is. Like, let's use some examples. We got Resident Evil. Resident Evil series just came out recently on Netflix. What are people doing about it? Are people attacking the actors and actresses on the show? No. The fandom is basically poking fun of how crappy it is. They're making memes off of it. They're joking about it. And that's kind of it. They move on. They might complain a little bit like, man, it sucks that something that we really like is being done by someone who doesn't appreciate the IP whatsoever. Someone who is not a fan of the series, of the video game series, is working on this show, and it shows, and that's why it sucks. So you might have some of that, but it's mostly just people joking about it, people memeing it. If it was to come out that like Netflix says, hey, we're canceling the series, it's only going to do one season because people didn't like it, it got poor reviews, people just kind of laugh at it. They'll probably be like, good, because it was terrible, and then move on with their lives. No one is this obsessively crazy about their fandom. Like the majority of people, which is why it's always funny when people say like toxic fandom. It's like actual fandom. Like when it comes to stuff that they really are passionate about, if it gets adapted into a movie, TV series, and it sucks, they usually just say it sucks, they meme it, and then they move on. Maybe they'll do a couple YouTube videos if they're YouTubers, but that's kind of it. They don't necessarily go after the actors or anything like that. They just say, man, this really sucked. And the only time they'll ever say anything about the actors or actresses is when the actors or actresses come out and rip on the fans. Like when you have actors and actresses come out and say, you only hate this change because you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, you're a misogynist, you're this and that, you're a Nazi, you're a white supremacist, you're nothing but a bunch of toxic, fans. That's when the fans say, you know what, F you. Like you're the one that came into our fandom, you're the one that came into something that we enjoy, and then you perverted it and you destroyed it. And then we come out and we say it sucks and we poke fun at you and we might meme you, and that's it. That's it. It's not until they come out and start attacking the fans that the fans will say something. So yeah, this just feels like an issue written by someone who has no idea what a fandom actually is, and they're getting their ideas from what a fandom is based off of tweets from crappy journalists who themselves don't know anything about what a fandom is. Like they get all their information from like articles that again have no idea what an actual fandom is. But yeah, they basically portray these people as losers who want to get revenge on Maisie Wade. So eventually they put their plan into action. They're gonna break into the house of Maisie Wade. They're gonna shut off her power, jam like the Wi-Fi, cut the camera feeds, break in and steal the prized signs issue, and then get out. And first off, if this is a famous actress on a popular show that's lasted for 10 years, are you telling me you don't think there's going to be any kind of security whatsoever? And I don't just mean cameras. I mean, there are going to be actual guards and stuff on the premises. Like, that's how it goes with actors and actresses. But yeah, apparently there's not going to be any here. But yeah, it's... I'm not going to spoil the cliffhanger. Well, it's not even a cliffhanger, bro. I'm not going to spoil the rest of the issue. But basically, the rest of the issue pretty much shows that this is not a Scream meets The Purge. This is a power fantasy. These characters are not villains we should fear. So yeah, that's Rogues Gallery. It's written by Hannah Rose May. I actually looked her up just to see, and it turns out she's actually an actress. And I was like, okay, she's an actress. I'm guessing maybe she was on some kind of superhero show. No, she wasn't on any kind of superhero show. I don't know, maybe Hannah Rose May knows someone who worked on a superhero TV series, or maybe she was involved in a TV series that got a lot of flack from the fandom, and now this is her power fantasy. That's what it feels like. It feels like this is a power fantasy for the actors involved in a superhero show that have fans that hate the show because the show has nothing whatsoever to do with the actual comics that it's based off of. It doesn't even have to be comics. It can just be any kind of fandom. Let's take Lord of the Rings, for example, because we got a lot of people shitting on Amazon's Lord of the Rings for good reason. I'm not going to go like too detailed into that, but a lot of the true fans are kind of like, this has nothing whatsoever to do with our shows. Basically, to do with our fandom, like our the books that it's based off of. This is pretty much just like fan fiction, not even close to fan fiction. It's like you're basically just writing your own story that you want to tell, and then just using the skin of a popular IP to get eyes on the product. I feel like that's what a lot of fandoms feel like. It's not necessarily that they just want something to bitch about, but it's just that it's obviously we get people who don't care about the product writing the product that the fandom obviously cares about. Halo, for example. Halo TV series, the showrunner straight up said that not only have they never seen Halo, but they actually don't give a shit about the video games whatsoever. They actively hated the video games, and they don't want anything to do with the video games. So it's like, well, how can you write a show based off a video game if you actively hate the video game? This basically is just, I'm going to tell my own story that has nothing to do with the series, and then I'm just going to attach the series brand onto it so that I can get the built-in audience. So that's mostly my experience when it comes to fandom. It's just people being pissed off that nothing based off of their passion is following the source material whatsoever. And this kind of feels like it's going out of its way to stereotype those people, and then making fun of them, and then just showing what a bunch of losers with no life these people are, and then later on actively attacking these people. So yeah, I also looked at some of the credit, and of course Heather Antos is the editor for this, so that how much you want to bet she had some input in this. Talk about someone who hates the fandom. You got Heather Antos involved in this series. But yeah, that's Rogue's Gallery. It's basically a power fantasy against quote-unquote toxic fandom. A non-existent toxic fandom. Again, every fandom has its toxicity regardless of what the medium is. But that's not the majority of the people. And most people like who have like a series based off of something they don't like, they mostly just ignore it. Or maybe they'll post, they'll make memes about it or something. But there you go. There's Rogue's Gallery issue number 1. Yeah, it was something. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Tell me what you think, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. So what'd you guys think of that video? I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys haven't already, please subscribe, hit that bell for a notification, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. And if you didn't enjoy the video, thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next video is more to your liking. Feel free to check out the playlist that you guys see, and I hope to see you guys next time. Later.